Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, What Prahlad Learned in the Womb, text number 3. So let's remember, the art of Krishna consciousness is what? Dum da dum dum.
It's a science of self-realization.
It's the art of focusing one's attention and giving one's love to Krishna. So first we have to focus our attention, or else we'll fall asleep. If we don't focus our attention on this class, we'll have to focus our attention on something else. And that will probably put us to sleep. And then we have to give our love. Not that, oh, I'm paying so much attention, I can't stand it, my brain is fizzling and smoke is coming out of my ears. He's paying attention, oh, it's too much. Better go to sleep. I'm getting tired. Focusing on, we have to focus our attention, and then the whole subject matter is love. So we have to have at least a favorable attitude. Not that we're seeing here who's speaking. Does anyone know who's speaking? Do you know what book we're reading? let's get it one at a time. Which is the book that we're reading? Bhagavatam. Okay, we've narrowed it down. And what canto are we in?
7.
And what's the chapter?
7.
And and what is the name of the chapter?
No, what Prahlad learned.
You're 3 days behind. Now you got to catch up. What Prahlad learned in the womb. And who's speaking? Who's Prahlad, and who is he speaking to?
To his school, demoniac school.
Yes, schoolmates. Demonic school. And who's narrating this narration? To who? Yudhishthira. And who's narrating this? Who's narrating the fact that... Yes, so Shukadeva Goswami. So we have to be there. First of all, we have to know what's going on. So we have to be there on the bank of the Ganges. And we have to be there with Parikshit Maharaj. We have to be one of those sages, or sages, depending what you know. We have to be one of those sages or sages, sitting there on the bank, listening to Parikshit Maharaj, listening to Shukadeva Goswami, speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. And what is he speaking? Now he's up to the fact that Yudhishthira Maharaj, or Narada Muni is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he's telling him about how Prahlad is speaking to his schoolmates, what he learned in the womb. If we don't get that, then we're missing something. And what did Prahlad say yesterday? What did Prahlad say yesterday? He said, Hare Krishna. Besides Hare Krishna, what did he say? What else did he say? What was he talking about yesterday? Yes. For a vacation. He got 200 euros and he took it. No. He went to which mountain? That's a really tough one. It's called Manda Rachala. Manda Rachala. Well, and what was he doing there? What's that? Austerities, yeah. And what happened? What else happened yesterday? Who went to who on the result of that? What happened after that? After Hiranyakashipu went to the mountains for austerities, what happened after that? Yes.
demigods take advantage of Hiranyakashipu missing in the kingdom and try to overtake the demonic kingdom.
Close, that's pretty good. King Indra, headed by the demigods, started to attack, subdue all the demons in warfare. So there's a big fight going on. I mean, if you were actually there in the fight with the demigods and the demons, you couldn't forget it. You couldn't forget it. But, you know, we're kind of like, oh, yeah, right, sure. Another quaint mythology in the Bhagavatam. But we actually believed it. We were actually there experiencing it. How could we forget it? Hiranyakashipu just left, and the demons, the demigods headed by Indra, are now attacking all the demons. And there's a big war going on. Text 3. Well, this is an interesting word. What does it mean? Pipilikai. Pipilikai ahir eva. Dishya loka patapana. Papena papo bhakshiti. Vadanto vasavadayo. Pipilikai ahir eva. Dishya loka patapana. Papena papo bhakshiti. Vedanto vasavadayaha. Pipilikara hiraiva. Dishya loka patapana. Papena papabhakshiti. Vedanto vasavadayaha. Dami. Pipilikai. Dishya loka patapana. Papena papabhakshiti. Vedanto vasavadayaha. Pipilikai haiva. Dishya loka patapana. Papena papabhakshiti. Vedanto vasavadayaha. Pipilikai. By small ants. Ahi. A serpent. Iva. Like. Dishya. Thank heaven. Loka upatapanaha. Always oppressing everyone. Papena, by his own sinful activities. Papa, the sinful Hiranyakashipu. Abhakshi has now been eaten. Iti, thus. Vedantaha, saying. Vasavaha, Avasava Adaya. The demigods headed by King Indra. Translation. Alas, as the serpent is eaten by small ants, so the troublesome Hiranyakashipu, who always inflicted miseries upon all types of people, has now been defeated by the reactions of his own sinful activities. Saying this, the demigods headed by King Indra arranged to fight the demons. When the great leaders of the demons, who were being killed one after another, saw the unprecedented exertion of the demigods in fighting, they began to flee, scattering themselves in all directions. Simply to protect their lives, they hastily fled from their homes, wives, children, animals, and household paraphernalia. Paying no heed to all these, the demons simply fled. The victorious demigods plundered the palace of Hiranyakashipu, the king of the demons, and destroyed everything within it. Thus Indra, king of heaven, arrested my mother, the queen. As she was being led away, crying in fear like a kukari captured by a vulture, the great sage Narada, who at that time had no engagement, appeared on the scene and saw her in that condition. Narada Muni said, "O Indra, king of the demigods, this woman is certainly sinless. You should not drag her off in this merciless way. O greatly fortunate one, this chaste woman is the wife of another. You must immediately release her." King Indra said, "In the womb of this woman, the wife of the demon Hiranyakashipu, is the seed of that great demon. Therefore let her remain in our custody until her child is delivered, and then we shall release her." Purport. Indra, the king of heaven, decided to arrest Prahlad Maharaj's mother because he thought that another demon, another Hiranyakashipu, was within her womb. The best course, he thought, was to kill the child when the child was born, and then the woman could be released. Translation. Narada Muni replied, "The child within this womb is faultless and sinless. Indeed, he is a great devotee, a powerful servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you will not be able to kill him." Purport. There have been many instances in which demons or non-devotees have attempted to kill a devotee, but they have never been able to destroy a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord promises in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, "Kontiya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashiti." This is a declaration by the Supreme Personality of Godhead about his devotee, that his devotee cannot be killed by demons. Prahlad Maharaj is a vivid example of the truth of this promise. Narada Muni told the king of heaven, "It would be impossible for you to kill the child, even though you are demigods, and certainly it would be impossible for others." Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyadyade Satarne. So who can give an example of when Krishna protected the devotees when they were put into difficulty, almost killed? Ambarish Maharaj. Who is going to kill him? Durvasa Muni. And what happened to Durvasa Muni? Yes. Burning him for a year. What's that? Ultimately, he had to surrender to Ambarish Maharaj. What's another example? What's an example of a devotee being killed by a demon? No example? What about Jatayu? Who was he killed by? Ravana. Yes, Ravana killed Jatayu. Is there any other example in the Bhagavatam? What about Pariksha Maharaj? He's killed by Takshaksha. He was cursed by Brahman. Killed by Takshaksha. Takshaka. Any other example? What about of a devotee being protected? Yes. Who was trying to kill him? Ashvatthama. Yeah, so we have examples of both ways. But generally speaking, Jatayu didn't lose. Who performed Jatayu's funeral? What's that? Lord Ramachandra. So, when we pass away, I don't think Lord Ramachandra is going to come for our funeral. And what about Parikshit Maharaj? What happened to him? Was that a curse that he was killed? What's that? Well, we know he heard the Bhagavatam from Shukadeva Goswami. Otherwise, he wouldn't have heard the Bhagavatam. And we wouldn't have heard the Bhagavatam either. And he became completely transcendental and went back to the spiritual world. Although he was probably transcendental anyhow. So text 11. When the great saint Narada Muni had thus spoken, King Indra, being respectful to Narada's words, immediately released my mother, because of my being a devotee of the Lord, all the demigods circumambulating her. And then they returned to their celestial kingdom. Purport. Although King Indra and the other demigods are exalted personalities, they were so obedient to Narada Muni that King Indra immediately accepted Narada Muni's words concerning Prahlad Maharaj. This is called understanding by the parampara system. Indra and the demigods did not know that a great devotee was in the womb of Kayadu, the wife of Hiranyakashipu. But they accepted the authoritative statements of Narada Muni and immediately offered their respects to the devotee by circumambulating the woman in whose womb he was living. To understand God and the devotee by the parampara system is the process of knowledge. There is no need to speculate about God and his devotee. One should accept the statements of a bona fide devotee and thus try to understand. Because we know that the demigods had faith in Narada Muni. It's not that Narada Muni simply said something, whatever he said, they accepted without accepting him as an authority. And first of all, they knew who was Narada Muni's father? Brahma. So they knew he came from a good background. And Narada Muni, obviously, the demigods are quite familiar with him because he's known as a sage amongst the demigods. He goes all over the universe. So they know he's not just an ordinary person, playing a flute or a veena, and he comes along and says, hey, leave her alone. Who are you? I'm Narada Muni. Who's Narada Muni? I have this veena. Good luck. There's so many musicians. But they have faith in Narada Muni because they have experience with him. He's everywhere in the universe, saving all kinds of souls, and he obviously has mystic power, otherwise he couldn't fly from one planet to the next, singing Krishna's glories all the time. So the demigods had faith in whatever he said. Not blind faith, but faith based upon experience. And therefore, whatever he said, they accepted. Prahlad continued, the great saint Narada Muni brought my mother to his ashram and assured her of all protection, saying, my dear child, please remain in my ashram until the arrival of your husband. After accepting the instruction of Devarshi Muni, Narada, my mother stayed in his care without fear from any direction, as long as my father, the king of the Daityas, had not become free from his severe austerities. Anything unusual about this? Anyone find anything unusual about this whole thing? Narada Muni taking Kayadu to his ashram. Do you find anything unusual, Gadadhar Pandit?
He's a brahmachari.
Yeah, if you decide, if you told one of the Manajis, come to my ashram, there'd be quite a scandal. What are you taking me there for? Oh, just to recite the Bhagavatam. So this is the next verse. My mother, being pregnant, desired the safety of her embryo, desired to give birth after her husband's arrival. Thus she stayed at Narada Muni's ashram, where she rendered service unto Narada Muni with great devotion. Purport. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Matra swashra duhitra va na vivikshano bhavet balavan indriyagramo vidvamsa apikarshiti. One should not remain in a secluded place with a woman, even one's mother, sister, or daughter. Nonetheless, although one is strictly prohibited from staying with a woman in a secluded place, Narada Muni gave shelter to Prahlad Maharaj's young mother, who rendered service to him with great devotion and faith. Does this mean that Narada Muni transgressed the Vedic injunctions? Certainly he did not. In case you had a point to hear. Such injunctions are intended for mundane creatures. Narada Muni is transcendental to mundane categories. Narada Muni is a great saint and is transcendently situated. Therefore, although he was a young man, he could give shelter to a young woman and accept her service. Haridas Thakur also spoke with a young woman, a prostitute, in the dead of night. But the woman could not deviate his mind. Instead, she became a Vaishnavi, pure devotee, by the benediction of Haridas Thakur. Ordinary persons, however, should not imitate such highly elevated devotees. Ordinary persons must strictly observe the rules and regulations by staying aloof from the association of women. One should not imitate Narada Muni or Haridas Thakur. It is said, Vaishnavera kriya mudra vigena bujhaya. Even if a man is very advanced in learning, cannot understand the behavior of a Vaishnava. Anyone can take shelter of a pure Vaishnava without fear. Therefore, in the previous verse, it has been distinctly said, Devashir andike sakuto baya. Kayadu, the mother of Prahlad Maharaj, stayed under the protection of Narada Muni without fear from any direction. Similarly, Narada Muni, in his transcendental position, stayed with the young woman without a fear of deviation. Narada Muni, Haridas Thakur, and similar acharyas, especially empowered to broadcast the glories of the Lord, cannot be brought down to the material platform. Therefore, one is strictly forbidden to think that the acharya is an ordinary human being. Gurushu naramati. What's that verse? Charyamam vijaniyam nava martita karhijit. Namartya buddhya suyeti ta sarva deva mayo guru. One should not think that the acharya is an ordinary person subject to death. The acharya is a representative of all the demigods. So how do we know who's an acharya and who's an ordinary devotee? How do we know if we're not an acharya? Why don't we invite some lady to our ashram and speak the Bhagavatam, thinking, well, maybe I'm an acharya. Let's find out. How do we know if we're an acharya? No one knows if they're an acharya. How do you know if you're an acharya? Well, if you're an acharya, you probably know you're an acharya. In other words, first of all, Narada Muni in the heavenly planets is a respected brahmachari. He has a spiritual body. He's not flying around in a material body. He has a spiritual body. So he pretty much knows what kind of body he has. If he had a material body, he'd have material consciousness, but he is in pure spiritual consciousness. So pretty much you know if you're attracted or not by material sense gratification. And if you're attracted by material sense gratification, then you're not on the platform of Narada Muni. And therefore, be cautious before you invite some lady to your ashram. Similarly, Haridas Thakur, he was in 24 hours a day in ecstasy, and therefore when the prostitute came, he had a choice. He could have drove her out of his ashram. Get out of here, you witch. What are you trying to do to me anyhow? Or he could have tried to save her. Now, in the Vedic culture, sages like Haridas Thakur are generally, at least in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they're glorified. But from the point of view of Ramachandra Khan, who had sent the prostitute, he was not considered to be very advanced in spiritual consciousness. Of course, Ramachandra Khan obviously wasn't very advanced either, but he considered Haridas Thakur an ordinary person. So the Bhagavatam is not written from the point of view, or the Chaitanya Charitamrita, of ordinary people. Because Ramachandra Khan could have, went around and said he was actually trying to have Haridas Thakur fall down so he could arrest him. He wasn't going around chanting Haridas Thakur's glories. But Haridas Thakur wasn't concerned about that. On the other hand, even Krishna is sometimes concerned about his reputation. What's an example when Krishna was concerned about his reputation? What's that? What about the Shamantaka jewel? What about the Shamantaka jewel?
It was stolen, and it was said that he just stole it.
Who said he stole? Are you accusing Krishna of stealing a jewel? Spreading rumors about Krishna.
People would talk to say.
What's that?
People would think that he was stole.
Why? Why did they say that he was stolen?
I don't know.
Yes, it was who owned the Shamantaka jewel? Satyajit. Yes, and where did he get it from? He stole it from a jeweler's shop. Look at that jewel. Sticky hands. No, he got it from the sun god. And where did the sun god get it from? He got it from Srimati Radharani. And where did Srimati Radharani get it from? And where did Madhava Mangal get it from? And where did Balaram get it from? And where did Krishna get it from? What's that? He killed... No. Who did he kill? What was the name of the follower of Kuvera? Shakatasura? Oh, okay. What was the name of the demon who tried to steal the gopis? Shankachuta. So Shankachuta tried to steal the gopis. Krishna cut off his head, got the jewel, gave the jewel to Balaram. Balaram gave it to Madhava Mangal. Madhava Mangal gave it to Srimati Radharani. Radharani was taken up to the heaven by the sun god, along with, I guess, who else came with? I guess Vishaka. And the sun god got the jewel, and he gave it to his devotee, Shatrajit, along with who? Who else did he give besides the jewel? Satyabhama. He gave Satyabhama. He gave Radharani. Who became... But Radharani in that Leela is Satyabhama. So they get the jewel, and then all the gopis, Radharani and the gopis and everyone else, they have their pastimes in Vrindavan. There's 16,108. And then they have their pastimes in Dwarka as the queens. So that's why they say the queens are expansions of the gopis, ultimately Radharani. And so here's the jewel, and then the jewel was with Satyajit, and then Satyajit, who asked Satyajit for the jewel? Krishna asked Satyajit. Satyajit came to Dwarka. He was so effulgent that everyone thought he was the sun god. Imagine how bright the jewel was. And then Krishna said, it's not the sun god, it's Satyajit, displaying his opulence. And he asked Satyajit for the jewel. Satyajit said, no way. I'll give you, because why? The jewel was giving 84 mounds of gold every day. Plus, wherever the jewel was, there was no famine, there was no pestilence, there was no starvation. I mean, it was quite a good jewel. He said, no, I'm not giving it to anyone. Krishna wanted him to give it to King Ugrasena. He said, no way. Sorry. And he put it in his collection. And he was getting 84 mounds of gold every day. But one day his brother, what's his brother's name? Prahladananda took the jewel to display it. Somehow or another, he wanted to display in the forest. I don't know, maybe to the deer and the whatever else, forest. So he was riding his horse in the forest, showing off his opulence. And who came along? A lion came and killed the horse, killed Satyajit, Prahladananda, and he took the jewel. I guess he needed some gold too. You never know, in the forest, sometimes you may need some gold. And he took it to his den, and then Jambavan heard about it. And he came, and who's Jambavan? King of the bears, yes. King of the bears. And he came and fought with the lion and killed the lion and took the jewel. And then Prabhupada said that he gave it to he lived in a cave and he gave it to his son to play with. I mean, that's quite a good toy to play around with. And then what happens? Satyajit didn't see the jewel anymore. Couldn't find his brother. Assumed that Krishna had done something and stole the jewel because he wanted it. And he started to spread the rumor all over Dwarka. And Krishna was saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names get to me after a while. So he wanted to protect his reputation. Imagine if he didn't, everyone's going around, Krishna is bad, Krishna is bad. Krishna is a thief. He stole in his childhood butter, and now he's grown up and he's stealing jewels. Watch out. Check your pocket when he's around. Make sure he does, you still have whatever you had in your pocket after he leaves. So Krishna didn't like that. He wants to be known as, at least be the mode of goodness. He's supposed to be God. So he didn't want to get the reputation of being a thief. So he went into the forest, and there he found the lion was killed, and the horse was killed, Prahladananda was killed, and he saw the footprints of Jambavan, and he concluded that Jambavan had killed the lion, and the lion had killed Prahladananda and the horse, and he followed him into the cave. And there he saw the jewel, the Shamantaka jewel, but in the hands of his Jambavan's son. He tried to take it back. But the nurse started to scream. Although Prabhupada said Jambavan didn't think very insignificant, he gave it to his child as a toy. But suddenly when someone came along and tried to get the jewel, he suddenly thought it was, must be worth something. So Jambavan came out quite angry. He tried to steal from my kid, and then there was a big fight for how many days? What's that? 28, all right. Well, here 29. 28. 28 days a night, they fought each other. And then Jambavan realized that this couldn't be an ordinary person because Jambavan had superhuman strength. I mean, who could fight for 28 days and nights in a row? You get a little tired after a little while. And they were banging each other with their fists, and Jambavan started to become weak. So he realized this must be my Lord God, Lord Ramachandra. No one else could have such superhuman strength. And so he surrendered. And then Krishna got the jewel back, and he got Satyabhama. Jambavati, actually. He got Jambavati. One place where I was said that Jambavati, they asked, did Krishna marry a bear? You go to the palace, see all these beautiful ladies, you walk in. One palace, No! No, Prabhupada said that Jambavan couldn't be a bear. He's the king of the bears. That doesn't mean he's a bear, though. Otherwise, he didn't have a daughter who was a bear. So Jambavati, she became Krishna's wife also, who was given, and Satyajit eventually gave Satyabhama to Krishna. Anyhow, we'll stop there. Any questions? So the idea is that even Krishna doesn't want his reputation spoiled. So this is necessary. Haridas Thakur. And here we find Narada Muni. They were transcendental and they did things which ordinary people can't do. But even Krishna, who's the most transcendental, but sometimes he doesn't want to be defamed because he's taking the role of an ordinary king in one sense. In Dwarka, he's not taking the role of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he had to protect his reputation. Like who else? What other form of God had to protect his reputation? What did he have to do?
When they were accusing Sita of being unchaste, he had to send her.
Yes. So even God seems to be more concerned about his reputation than Narada Muni and Prahlad and Haridas Thakur. So God really has to protect his reputation. Although he does things which are quite extraordinary. Like dancing with other people's wives in the dead of night, stealing butter, etc., etc. Any questions, comments? All right, thank you very much. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.